Okay, here is the portion that will tend to confuse the most users of the Kinetec Centura Shoulder CPM. We have the first motor, M1, mounted with a little ball and socket type joint right here that allows you to pivot this way, as well as that's how it's attached. At the end here I mentioned the red and the blue dots, for red for right setup, blue for left. As you can see, we've got a right setup here. This little slot here will take one of two different components. There's a third component that will actually go in there, but it's an incorrect setting. So I'm going to show you that one as well and point out the potential confusion that it will cause people. But there are one of two components that will go there. One is a single motor. This would be the abduction or flexion splint. And it's for doing abduction or flexion only. You would take this portion here with this mounting bar that slides in there, red side up. This portion slides in here until it clicks. This little knob will click into place. So now it's clicked in place and will not slide. This straight arm setup here is the abduction or flexion splint. It can be put out to the side, more for abduction type motions, or more towards the front in the plane that's off to the side for flexion and extension exercises. You can adjust the angle of the elbow by means of adjusting this knob underneath. You can adjust for the length of the forearm by adjusting right here. And then of course, as we've got it set up now, you would want to adjust this hand support the other direction, either here or here, somewhat according to comfort, and also if there's any specific instructions given as to hand position, palm down or thumb up. Tighten that into place. There will be some play rotationally as well as lengthwise in that hand support. In this configuration, you will need some support for the upper arm, for basically the bicep area. This upper arm support will slide over the end near the M1 motor. This portion right here slides over that bar. I'm going to show you on the outside, but it's going to go here. So it would slide over the end of this side bar up at the base of the M1 motor and all the way down until it clicks into one of the four spots. My suggestion would be to slide this down as far out as you can. The closer it is towards the client's armpit, the more likely this plastic shell is to possibly dig into the rib cage or torso somewhere. So unless it's a very small person, you're probably going to want this at least in one of the last two available slots. As I mentioned, this will actually attach on the inside. So now the upper arm as well as the wrist and hand are supported. We've got appropriate length adjustments that we've already discussed. We've got appropriate length here. We can go with a straight arm, or we can go with a bent elbow for comfort, depending on what the client needs and what the clinician's instructions may have been. Once again, this setup is the abduction, ab and adduction, or flexion and extension splint setup. There's only one other possible thing that should connect into this point right here for adjustment, and that is the other motor. This is M2. Once again, we have red dot and blue dot. Up here we also have red dot and blue dot. this motor connects, and basically this axis of rotation should line up with the long axis, the shaft of the humerus, the upper arm bone. So red to red, slide this in place until it clicks. We now have one motor oriented this way and one motor oriented this way. This would be the ab and adduction with associated rotation splint setup. So we now have one motor mounted to the portion of the other motor to give us ab and adduction here and rotation here. We need to have support for the lower half of the arm, and now we do that here. This device here that has this elbow cup to it is what connects once this second motor is in place. This is the portion that people will often confuse and put in place here where I've just mounted this motor, and I'll show you that in a minute. But for now, what we're going to do is mount red to red and mount that in place. We now have a way to support the bent elbow, which will be bent by definition at about 90 degrees, and have the wrist and hand supported out here. So once again, this is the ab and adduction with associated rotation splint setup. If you have plugged in that second motor, of course you're going to want to plug in the motor itself to the back of the control unit. Lock that locking collar down appropriately. Now I will show you the incorrect way that many people will encounter, just so that you will recognize it. But let me point out once again, this 90-degree elbow cup that holds the elbow in place goes on last once it's mounted to the second motor. What some people have mistakenly done, and don't feel bad if it's you because a lot of people have done this, is they will go red dot, this must go here, and put that in place. But now you can see visually the elbow cannot go in here bent at 90 degrees because this is in the way. If you've done that, of course, just remove that. Get the second motor with the colored dots up. Mount the appropriate color dot to match. Now slide the lower arm support in place, and you can have rotation occurring here for ab and adduction, rotation occurring here for internal-external rotation of the upper arm by means of turning the humerus at the elbow joint.